Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. First of all, I want to say congratulations to the team 7 and Unit Bebas team because going to the final round and will compete for the first place. I am Nika Dartabawu and here I am as the moderator. And then I want to introduce the team that will be competing this final round. The representative from the team 7 are first Putumas Trawidasa Putra as the first speaker, and then Nicholas Suryolaksono as the second speaker. And last one is Gusti Ayu Dwi Rakautami as the third speaker. And then from the Unut Bebas team, the representative from the team Unut Bebas team are Nimade Putri Prami Pratiwi as the first speaker, and then Niketut Devi Damayanti as the second speaker, and then Ikomang Dananjaya as the third speaker. For the final round, the chosen motion is this House believe that fuel subsidy funds channeled for the infrastructure development effect to the long-term economic development in Indonesia. Okay, I repeat. The motion is this House believe that fuel subsidy funds channeled for infrastructure development affect the long-term economic development in Indonesia. Yes, of course. So the motion is this House believes that fuel subsidy funds channeled for the infrastructure development affect the long-term economic development in Indonesia. For the all participants, that is clear? For the participant, that is clear? Okay, I will repeat once again. The chosen motion is this House believes that full subsidy funds channeled for infrastructure development impact the long-term economic development in Indonesia. Okay, and now I will select for the team who's going to be the affirmative team and the opposite team. So the mechanism is there are two cards that consist by number 1 and number 0. To the team who get number 1 will be the affirmative side, and who get the number 1 will be the opposite side. And now for the representative for each team, please come forward. Okay. For the team 7 from Poltrada Bali will be the affirmative team, and then Bebas team from Udayana University will be the opposite team. And now I will ask for the each team who's gonna be the reply speaker. Same as the debate before, the reply speaker can only come from the second and third speaker. So we'll ask each team. For the team 7, who's gonna be the reply speaker? Okay, the first speaker. And then for the opposite team, who's gonna be the reply speaker? Okay, the second speaker. And now, before we start our debate, I will give you 20 minutes to do case building. Okay, for now, I place you all to do case building, and you can follow the LO.
Today I don't feel like doing anything. I just wanna lay in my bed. Don't feel like picking up my phone, so leave a message at the tone. 'Cause today I swear I'm not doing anything. I'm gonna kick my feet up, then stare at the fan. Turn the TV on, throw my hand in my pants. Nobody's gonna tell me I can't. Nah, I'll be lounging on the couch, just chilling in my snuggie. Click to MTV so they can teach me how to Dougie. 'Cause in my castle, I'm the freaking man. Oh, yes, I said it. I said it. I said it 'cause I can.
Okay, the time for doing capacity building is over, and also the all participants already here. And now, I want to tell you about some rules of this final session. First, each team have time 7 minutes 20 seconds to present their speech. Two, first chance will give only the affirmative team to present their speech, and then continue to the first speaker from the opposition team until the third speaker. Third, the first speaker from the affirmative team is required to define the topic and give limitation as well as present some of their arguments. 4. The first speaker from the opposition team is required to give a rebuttal to the first speaker of the affirmative team and speech their argument. And then the second speaker of the opposition team give a rebuttal to the first speaker and second speaker from the affirmative team and give additional argument and defend their team arguments. 6. The third speaker of the affirmative team give a rebuttal to the argument from the first and second speaker from the opposition team and give a conclusion. The third speaker of the opposition team give a rebuttal to the argument from the first, second, and third speaker from the affirmative team, and after that, close the debate with a conclusion. And then, POI is low when the opposing speaker speaks between the first to 6 minutes, and POI is only allowed for the second and third speaker for each team. And then, POI will be received once by the opposing team with a maximum time of 30 seconds to present their question or statement. 10. Closing argument given by each team represented by a reply speaker with maximum time duration of 4 minutes 20 seconds, and the third speaker are not allowed to speak their argument. The timing will be alerted by the sound of the bell that will be ringed 3 times. And then the timing for the speaker will be alerted by the sound of bell. There are 3 kinds of bell. First, one time of bell rings, that means first 1 minute has been passed and POI is low. And second, if bell rings 2 times, that is mean 1 minute before talk time over and opposite team must not do POI again. And last is 3 times, that mean time is up. And then last one, please keep your phone and don't use during this debate session. Okay, from the rules that I tell to you all, there is any question? All right, before we start our debate, I introduce the adjudicator. So for the final round, our adjudicator are Mr. Aditya Ridu Patmawan, SPD MPD. And then we have Ms. Niputu Ayunia Lopiani, SPD. Okay, the debate will be start. For the affirmative team, are you ready? For the opposite team, are you ready? For the adjudicator, are you ready? Okay, if every person are ready, we will start the debates. Start from the first speaker of the affirmative team. And now time is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our motion for today's debate is that this House believes that full subsidy funds channeled for infrastructure development affect the long-term economic development in Indonesia. And we as the government team strongly agree and support with these motions. Me as the first speaker of the government team will be talking to you about the accessibility aspect. My second speaker will be talking to you about the education aspect and development aspect. And my third speaker will be talking to you about the comparing and strengthen my argument. I repeat our argument. Ladies and gentlemen, we define the motion as the infrastructure is a public capital model that seems like roads, bridges, and buildings that can support the economics in the macro area. And long-term economy is that the macro development in terms of 2 years, 20 years. And the background of this motion is that, ladies and gentlemen, government of Indonesia is already give about 502 trillion rupiah, or about 60% of their national budget, for fuel subsidy, to make sure that everyone in Indonesia that have middle to low income can buy and afford the fuel or gasoline in gas stations. But in the reality, ladies and gentlemen, the subsidy does what's suitable for the middle to low income people was also used by the middle to upper income people. So because of that, this subsidy is not on target from the government. That's make the government of Indonesia want to channel the fund of subsidy to the other things, such as infrastructure developments, to develop their economic in the long-term aspect. And why the governments need to do that? Because when the government build the infrastructure, they will have a long-term effect. Because when you, for example, when you build a road, a bridge, they will have long-term effects, like they will develop the economics of the region that was built by the government. So because of that, the government of Indonesia is decided to decrease the fuel subsidies and use that money for the other beneficial purpose. That statement was based on Kemenko on 4 September 2020. Ladies and gentlemen, jump to my first argument. There is about the accessibility. Ladies and gentlemen, the development of infrastructure can make economy develop in a long term, especially in Indonesia. That's because the economic activity can be supported and growth in the long term by infrastructure. For the example, when your region didn't have any roads, and then the government built the road for you, that will be support the economy, because the logistic support and also trading activity will be supported by that roads. The other example is the sea toll or toll out. Toll out or sea toll makes the governments build a lot of seaports that support the economic activity in the remote island in Indonesia. And this remote island in Indonesia, this make the people in that remote area get the product outside of their island with the same price with the main island, especially in Java. And also they have the opportunity to sell their product outside of their island, maybe outside of the country. So because of that, there will be a lot of economic activity, and then will be developed for their economic in the regions. Pardon me, in the regions. By this way, the remote island can develop their islands continuously, step by step, because they have the economic activity with the other island. So because of that, ladies and gentlemen, by using this subsidies funds that was channeled for the infrastructure development will be a fact of the long-term economic development. Like what my example said before, there will be giving opportunity for the people who can access outside of their island, outside of their regions, to do any business. And by that, they can build their own region, but they can build their own economic, ladies and gentlemen. And that's by data from the business.com in 2021, Seattle has increased of selling of wood and seaweed from Papua and West Papua about 52% in 2021. That was the example how this infrastructure will be effect in the long term, because this Seattle will be giving a lot of beneficial product, beneficial income for the remote area in Indonesia. And because of that, we as the government team, strongly agree and strongly believe this statement is true. Thank you.
Okay, that is the first speaker of the affirmative team, and it has been 5 minutes 25 seconds. And now we call for the first speaker of the opposite team. For the opposite team, time is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the time that given to me as the first speaker of the opposition side of the House. Before I deliver you our substantive point of why then we disagree with this motion, here let me give some rebuttal to what the first speaker of the government side of the House has stated to you. Ladies and gentlemen, the first speaker of the government side of the House told us that how this fuel subsidies is for mid and low income, right? And they are worried at the end of the day how this kind of fuel subsidized fund is giving to a lot of people that is in upper class. So it is not straight to it is target, right? That's their worries. But ladies and gentlemen, there are solutions to channel channel the subsidized fund to infrastructure is not a solution, ladies and gentlemen, because we see here what happened to people that need that subsidized. What happened to people that is in mid to low income that need that subsidized? They doesn't even think what happened to people, our society that is a lot of that is still, because we are developing country, there are a lot of people that is still in mid and low class that need that subsidized, ladies and gentlemen. When they want to deliver that fund subsidized that subsidized fund to infrastructure, then it means they are taking the subsidized from the society that really need it, ladies and gentlemen. Also, by channel it to the infrastructure, ladies and gentlemen, it is not the solution to make sure that the upper class will not get the fuel subsidized, right? If then you don't want the upper class to get subsidized, ladies and gentlemen, then what you have to do is to strengthen the mechanism. So at the end of the day, it is clear that the only people that could get this fuel subsidized is the mid-low income people, ladies and gentlemen. That should be the solutions, not channel it to the infrastructure to their development and etc. Also, ladies and gentlemen, we never hear why then at the end of the day, the government side of the House would like to channel the subsidized fund that is really important to build the infrastructure, ladies and gentlemen. We don't see any urgency because here in our side of the House, we see that Indonesia is in a, sustained progress to build a lot of infrastructure, such as how being the house of G20, which is we built a lot of highways such as Trans Papua, fixing in Bali's highway and etc. So at the end of the day, we see that here it is a really well conditions of our infrastructure. So we don't need to make it important, ladies and gentlemen. We can think of our infrastructure. Yes, it is important, but first thing first is that our society needs that we have to fulfill first before we strengthen our infrastructure, right? Also, ladies and gentlemen, the government side of the House stated to us that people in remote area need infrastructure, so then they would like to channel it to infrastructure development and etc. But ladies and gentlemen, when the fuel subsidies is taken from mid to low people that is live in remote area, we can see that it's mean we are sacrificing their needs, ladies and gentlemen. Their needs to use fuel, which is really important, to at the end of the day making our infrastructure only. But what happened to them when they are now needed that fuel subsidies and etc., ladies and gentlemen? They don't even think the solution to the society that use that fuel subsidies, and then when it's suddenly taken from them, what then they use? It would bring harm to them, ladies and gentlemen, because every price would be getting increased, even the fuel increase and etc. So at the end of the day would like to sacrifice our society itself, right? Okay, moving to our points, our opposition side of the House point. Here as the first speaker, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to deliver to you why then the fuel subsidies is really important, and I would like to prove to you that how at the end of the day, how that this infrastructure development is not urgent, ladies and gentlemen. That is not the things that we have to pay attention at the very first point. My second speaker later would like to tell you, even if then the fuel subsidies would be channeled for infrastructure development, then it still would like to bring harm to the current situations, which will not be a good long-term of economic development at the end of the day. So at the end of the day, all of their scenario would not be achieved by the things that they have stated before. Ladies and gentlemen, moving to my first point. First, let's analyze the characteristic of the needs of fuel subsidies, ladies and gentlemen. First, we see that how the fuel development is really risky, right? How the price of fuel is really literally changing all the time, because a lot of time, like when it's coming in Ukraine war and etc., the price of fuel getting increased a lot of more, and it also affected our society. It increased the price and it affected our society. That is why this fuel subsidies is really important to our society, because seeing that unsustainable price of that fuel, right? Also, seeing that this fuel is really important, not only in this land transportation sector, ladies and gentlemen, we see a lot of sectors need fuel subsidized, right? For example, like farmer, they need fuel to operate their machines to do the agriculture things. Also, the fisheries, they need fuel to operating their boat, catching fish and etc. They need this fuel subsidized, ladies and gentlemen. Furthermore, a lot of our fisheries and farmer is still in the middle low and small kind of, a small kind of farmer and fisheries. That is why this fuel subsidies is really important to our society. Also, seeing that this fuel subsidies is really important, that is why at very first time we cannot just suddenly channel the fuel subsidies fund and give it to the infrastructure that is not urgent enough to do it right now, ladies and gentlemen. Okay, moving to second point of mine. The infrastructure can be happen even if we not channel the fund of fuel subsidies, ladies and gentlemen. We can see that how infrastructure is not urgent, as what I've said before, because once again, I have to say that now we are in a good process and developing our infrastructures, right? We don't really see a struggle and harm happen in our infrastructure side, ladies and gentlemen, because now we are hosting G20, the biggest event in the world, Trans Papua, building Nusantara as our new capital city. That needs money, right? That needs fund, right, ladies and gentlemen? But we see that those fund is there, is here. We have it, ladies and gentlemen. That's why it doesn't need to be channeled to infrastructure to make long-term development progress, ladies and gentlemen. We already have that money and funds for infrastructure. Then fuel subsidized fund just should be channeled to provide the fuel subsidized itself, ladies and gentlemen. It is really okay. It is really okay with our infrastructure. So then we just can focus to provide our society needs by giving this fuel subsidized to everyone. So yeah, that's the thing. Because this fuel subsidies is really needed, we don't believe this should be channeled to infrastructure. Thank you.
Ladies and gentlemen, that is speech from the first speaker of the opposite team and has spent 7 minutes 28 seconds. And now we call for the second speaker of the affirmative team. For the affirmative team, time is yours.
Okay, good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. The topic of our debate is this House believe that the fuel subsidy fund channeled to the infrastructure development affect the long-term economic in Indonesia. So, ladies and gentlemen, as first thing first, I will give them some rebuttal to the first speaker of the opposition teams that they question about how we must channel the subsidy of the fuel to channel to infrastructure development. So they are questioning about what happened to the lower income people or the person. So the reason to we build the infrastructure is to increasing the condition of economic in Indonesia, and also the reason to is also she said that we must fulfill the society by to give them some subsidy, especially in the fuel, but it creating some dependency on the fuel. And in fact, as my first speaker has given some effect, the fact is 15.4 trillion and 16% of national budget in Indonesia is spending by the government to fulfilling the fuel subsidy. So it is showing us that the fuel subsidy really taking place in national budget, and to channel to distribute it well. It is not for the short-term development. We need to think further. So we need to creating some infrastructure. So, and also the first speaker is stating that by changing fuel, she given an example about the farm, and we can you see the bigger picture? It is not only the tools that you use in the field or etc. So in the farm also they need some infrastructure. Can you imagine if some region is building some good well irrigation, it is creating some good economic there. So by as the example and the fact that taking the irrigation infrastructure are developmental, it is creating some long-term economic, and it is good for the Indonesian. And uh, and he should also state that Indonesia is a good and not in struggle, that we not harming at all. But Indonesia needs to be improved. We are not so comfort now. We must compete with each other. So we need to take some development. Not so we are not dependent on condition nowadays. So as my first speaker is already to tell you that the urgency that the first speaker is not really understand that the urgency that the subsidy of the fuel, because the subsidy is not suitable with the target. So the higher income is using the fuel subsidy, and it is not suit with the target. And so the solution is the money and the subsidy, it will be channeled with the beneficial purpose. What is the beneficial purpose? So we need to arrange some the infrastructure developmental. As my first speaker give an example about CITO. So the CITO is a really benefit for the Indonesia. What kind of benefit? They give some accessibility. It is not only for some region, it is for the Indonesia. And also he give an example for the road. The road is giving some logistic functional. So, and also the trading, it also good for the economy. And as I said before, that we must see it in the bigger picture, not only short term. So Indonesia will be better in the long term. And jump to my point. Nowadays, the government of Indonesia. No, please. No, thanks. Sorry. I will give some point in the development aspect or for the collective goods. So nowadays, the government of Indonesia is slowly decreasing the fuel subsidy funds. So there was an idea by the government that the fund will be erased totally, and where the funds will go, it will be channeled or distributed to the other aspect, especially in this case, it is the infrastructure development. So the government have to get strong movement to erase this fund. So they need to take other aspect to really take attention. So no thanks. The public is now so. And also the fact, as I said before, that the public is so dependent to buy food subsidy. So it is the moment to the government to need to wake up the public and need, fulfill the needs of the society or the public to move to other aspect. So I give the example that the infrastructure will be just like the CITO, creating accessibility to many regions. And it creating work field, and also it connecting one region to other regions. So if you see that the economic will be spreading evenly, so the differences between the price of the other region will be decreasing. And also I will give an example about toll road and railway. And also the public works right now, the public works ministry is showing the president that till June 2020, the toll roads has 2,500 with the 60 branch road. The toll road has the foundation to the country that to gain accessibility to distributing goods and service. So the toll road and railway is spreading not only in Java, and also it's spreading on the Sumatra and Sulawesi, and also it creating some long-term economic benefit, and also it affecting to Indonesia. And if we still to agree with this development, it will be good for the Indonesia. Instead, we are complaining about the high rising price of the fuel. So it is not our first time to handle this. So by the example and the evidence, of the infrastructure that government built, if it is to show that the infrastructure is really affecting the economic condition, especially in the long term. So we as the government team, we still believe that this statement is true and we agree with this motion. Thank you.
Okay, that is the speech from the second speaker of the affirmative team. And it has been 7 minutes, 11 seconds. And for now, we call for the second speaker of the opposite team. For the second speaker, time is yours.
We see that how the government of their house is neglecting the current situation, ladies and gentlemen, as how the poor, the middle to low societies is actually struggling in surviving their daily life, but they are talking about the future impact on how this infrastructure would help them and so on and so forth. Meanwhile, they are struggling in their in current situation, ladies and gentlemen. Here, before I went to my second point, which is about the future impact on how this reducing fuel subsidies would brings more harm to the societies and also the economic development in Indonesia in general, I would like to bring some rebuttals towards what the second speaker of the government of their house have talked before. That is, ladies and gentlemen, here the first speaker of the government of the house talking about how this fuel subsidized is for someone who is actually middle to low people, ladies and gentlemen, means that they are in need, ladies and gentlemen, but then they are neglecting them and not giving any kind of solution. How then this middle to low people would survive if then the fuel subsidized would be cut by the government itself, ladies and gentlemen. Here they are also talking about how this full subsidized is actually taking place so many in national budget and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. Here we believe that how the national budget is already planned very well by the government, and it is according to the urgencies of the needed that we need, ladies and gentlemen. As for example, if then this full subsidies, the full subsidized is having a large on budget in the national budget, it is okay because it is urgent, because we are lacking of it, ladies and gentlemen. So we believe that how even if they are having a larger number on the national budget and so on and so forth, it is still depending on how urgent it is, ladies and gentlemen. So it is okay. Here they are also talking about how the remote area would survive because everything is expensive there and so on and so forth. We believe that we couldn't justify, we couldn't just sacrifice all of the societies in Indonesia to be struggling by reducing the full subsidies, ladies and gentlemen, because we believe that there's still many ways to help the remote area people, ladies and gentlemen. For example, we can give them more incentive, for example. That also would help them in making their infrastructure getting better and so on and so forth. It doesn't need to sacrifice all of the society by cutting off the full subsidized to everyone, ladies and gentlemen. Here talking about their second point, which is about they saying how the fund the full subsidized is channeled to infrastructure and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. But here, according to the data that I got from compass.com, the fund is not channeled to infrastructure sector, ladies and gentlemen, but it is for the direct money aid, or in Indonesia we call it bantuan tunai langsung, and it is means that how the fact that they bring is actually not compatible in this debate, ladies and gentlemen. They are also talking about how by making so many infrastructure developments, so on and so forth, would create many jobs and so on and so forth. But we believe that how by cutting the fuel subsidized, it also would make a lot of people becoming unemployed, ladies and gentlemen. For example, someone who work as ojek and so on and so forth, they are really depending on fuel it's subsidized itself, ladies and gentlemen. But then if it is reduced, then how they can survive, ladies and gentlemen? We believe that even if they are creating many jobs, it is also creating unemployed, means that it doesn't give any good at all. Here, I'm going to went to my second point, which is about the future impact, how then this reduced fuel subsidized would bring harm to the economic development in Indonesia. First of all, if it's channeled, then we all know how substantial fuel is in our status quo, right? It plays a big role for everything is produced, how every product is delivered, and so on and so forth. By the full subsidized to be channeled for infrastructure development, it would ruin the entire economic sector. Why? Because as we know that how in this even in this current situation, every general needed such as rice, chili, onions, so on and so forth is getting expensive, ladies and gentlemen, as how the delivery fee is getting expensive, ladies and gentlemen. That also affect the fees of each product. As according to Kompas TV, we believe that how the cooking oil cost us 36 rupiah for 2 liters. But then after this reducing full subsidized situation, it then it costs us about 50,000 rupiah, ladies and gentlemen. That kind of thing, according to that matter, it would be hard for the societies to survive as they have to spend more money on their daily needs and also to the fuel itself, ladies and gentlemen. And that actually proves on how even if full subsidized channel for any other sector, it already affected the economic sector in the current situation, ladies and gentlemen. If that would affect the economic sector in current situation, then how can we survive in the future, ladies and gentlemen? Here, talking about if it's not channeled, we believe that how the infrastructure situation is actually fine because as what my first speaker have told you that we already created flyover in Papua, highway in Kalimantan, we built stadium for Asian Games, so on and so forth. We believe that how every sector has their own budget according to how urgent it is. For example, we are lacking in fuel, then the government would subsidize more money in it. But if the infrastructure is okay, then the government doesn't need to subsidize more in that sector, right? Equality is depending on how urgent it is, ladies and gentlemen. It is not about futuristic imagination as how the government side of the house talking about. Here, if the full subsidized is not channeled, the needs and the fees of any product would be stable, ladies and gentlemen. The society would survive within those conditions, and the infrastructure will still develop since it has their own budget, as what I have told you before. It is already planned in the national budget itself. They have their own budget at the very first place, right? We are going to progress in the future at the end of the day because how our society currently is surviving, ladies and gentlemen, because they would as how they are able to buy daily needs product and so on and so forth in the current situation, then they would distribute their money to get a better job, a better life, a better education, and so on and so forth, and that would increase the quality of the people at the end of the day, right? And it would contribute more to the economic sector because of what? Because they successfully fulfilling their daily needs and so on and so forth, then it also proved that how they can pay tax annually and so on and so forth. Just imagine how then if they are not able to pay their daily needs, then how could they pay tax and how it would bring any kind of good impact to economic development in Indonesia for the future impact. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the second speaker of the oversight team, and it spent 7 minutes 28 seconds. And now we call for the third speaker of the affirmative team. For the third speaker, time is yours.
Okay, am I audible? Thank you. Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. So today, I, as a third speaker, will give you summarize that debate and explain why my team still wants. But for the first, I will rebut the other team's argument. Then I will reinforce my team point and explain why we agree with these motions. And we still stand at the end of the debate. So, ladies and gentlemen, so as you already heard, as the first opposition speakers tried to you about the they said we are remove the subsidy, but ladies and gentlemen, we not remove the subsidy, but we only cut the subsidy for as not for a hike and for as not hike as before. So ladies and gentlemen, they said they must give the injective. So ladies and gentlemen, the injective just for short them and makes them lazy. Then because their work depends on government incentives. So by interesting, we also make jobs because we can feel people to work and build the no thanks. So important thing. Let's do their point. So they have to explain you why this is the instructor is not urgent. But ladies and gentlemen, as my first and second speaker has to try to you about how these instructors can develop our country. So as we know, our country is island by island. So of course, by infrastructure, we can connect our country and can impact for our long-term economy, ladies and gentlemen. So and they all say to you about they never heard that channel can bring impact and for infrastructure and the transport and bridge. That's not important. So ladies and gentlemen, let me bring you the example. So let me give you the full subsidy fund channel for infrastructure development can bring good for a long-term economic development in Papua. So as we know, Papua Island with enough uneven access with the construction of infrastructure, the construction of roads, bridges, and so on will make it easier for this make accessibility. So ladies and gentlemen, remote area will be easily reached by this infrastructure and of course have a good impact for long-term economy. So let me give you an example. The development that has been found in Papua, the construction of the Papua. So like the example is no thanks so Somboy. The connects so the Somboy bridge that connect two districts. That name is the Casio and district, the Casio district and Yofen district. So where the bridge is helpful for the activity of the population and encourage the economy of the local community. So the economic impact is also felt because residents can save on vehicle operation costs through the Somboy bridge. So because of that, the construction of the Somboy river bridge that residents of two districts were forced to cross river and fight the strong current to get the city area. And so let's be inform you and remind you. Our first and second speaker has to tell about they already say how to make the development of the infrastructure and how to go as well for the supports and how the economic channel by the subsidy and how the full subsidy to grow and development infrastructure can support remote area in Indonesia. So our first speaker already tell to you too about how easily access to bring economy to remote area, especially in the speed up travel time between the city. And our second speaker has to try to you to inform you about how to can make slowly decrease the field subsidy funds and already tell you how it's well channel or distribute to other aspects, especially in infrastructure. So, and the third already, so our second speaker already give you example how to subsidy channel for infrastructure bring long-term effect. So ladies and gentlemen, long-term effect for infrastructure will greatly influence and even determine socio-economic integration of the people and with the other area. So ladies and gentlemen, let's jump to my argument. So the use of the budget to pay for fuel subsidy has made Indonesia a hostage. The money that should have been used to build and improve, that's the money improve. So the money that should have been used to build and improve welfare of the people only burned down so quickly on the street. So it's so unfortunately, ladies and gentlemen. So if such a large budget is without investment for long development, so especially is in an infrastructure side. So as we know, infrastructure development is one of the government effort to grow to economic in the long term, ladies and gentlemen. So all of the words, the first and our second speaker has tried to you. So we are from the government side still strong with this motion. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the speech from the third speaker of Affirmative team and has spent 5 minutes 41 seconds. And now we call for the third speaker of the opposite team. For the third speaker, time is yours.
Ladies and gentlemen, let's first engage with the side of affirmative proposal, right? Firstly, they told you that the long-term economic is 20 years. They're going to make a development of infrastructure in 20 years in the future right now. Second, they talk to you about how this fuel subsidized fund will be channeled to infrastructure development. But the things that they can never engage in this proposal is that one, how is that 20 years is permissible or even feasible for them to develop infrastructure that they have dreamed of? And second, how the only fund or subsidies that are going to be channeled to this development are only the fuel subsidies. We cannot accept that in this proposal. But on the comparative, the opposition side of the house proved to you that even if without the subsidized fuel fund cannot be channeled for this infrastructure development, we're still going to develop infrastructure anyway, and we're going to create a sustainability for the economic development in the society. In my speech, I'm going to talk about two main contention. One, in which proposal that we're going to make a development for the Indonesia economy, and second, is the fuel subsidies fund is the only solution for that. But firstly, let me engage with the first affirmative speaker argument. What they told you is the argument of accessibility. They talk about how infrastructure is important to make accessibility for the remote area. For example, they're going to create a road and highways in the remote areas such as Papua and Sumatra and so on and so forth. But first of all, what they need to engage with is that even if the infrastructure is there, fuel plays an important role. It is useless for you to develop this infrastructure with a high price of fuel because you cannot distribute this in an innovative way anyway. That's why the accessibility point is not exclusive. But second of all, they talk about the remote area has been disenfranchised because of the bad infrastructure. Two responses on this, right? One, we can still develop infrastructure without using additional budget allocation. My first and second speaker already told you that infrastructure right now is okay because we can develop Trans-Papua Highway, Trans-Sumatra, and so on and so forth. It means that without even channeling this fuel subsidies fund, we are still okay to develop this infrastructure in remote area. But second, even if we still need additional budget, it shall not be the fuel budget. Why? Because it is very risky, ladies and gentlemen. We understand in the current status quo in which Russia and Ukraine is conducting war, there's it affecting the high prices of fuel. It making all the European countries such as Germany and all other countries are experiencing recession. It means that developing country like Indonesia would not be able to survive in this condition because we're not have the strong economic basis as those countries as mentioned before. But thirdly, even if the fuel fund is permissible, it's counterproductive, ladies and gentlemen. What we have told you is that when the good infrastructure has made, fuel plays the significant role to perform distribution agenda, for example. Ferry, land transportation, air transportation needs fuel. The fact that no guarantee that the price is affordable, making the distribution will be harmed. Therefore, there is no remote area, the remote area development that they're talking about will not happen in their case. But the third of all, they talk about the misapplication of the subsidize itself. We have two responses on this. One, other solutions still exist. Ladies and gentlemen, if the problem is the misapplication of the fuel distribution, fuel subsidies distribution, we can make another solution. For example, we can collect the data for those who are from the middle to up income family and those who are from the otherwise, and we can send this fuel data to the fuel selling companies, so these people won't be gotten these subsidies. That means that we do not need to channel these fuel subsidies fund just to make a utopian solution that they're talking about. Therefore, this point should not be stand. But the second thing that they fail to prove to you is that why the channeling of this fuel subsidies fund is the only solution to do that. Therefore, no clarification made by the other side of the house. Their second speaker told you about three other things, right? Firstly, they're talking about their proposal will make Indonesia less dependent upon the fuel subsidies. And second, the development of infrastructure will provide economical benefits. Let's first engage with the how Indonesia will be less dependent. Ladies and gentlemen, what they fail to characterize is that fuel prices is very fluctuative. It means that you cannot expect that this will be stagnant. You cannot expect that these fuel prices will be in a certain range of prices, because the condition in the international relation plays an important role in this. For example, in the current status quo in which Russia attacking Ukraine, and those European country block the Russia for their policy. For example, Germany, United Kingdom, and so on and so forth. They now are experiencing recession because they aren't getting the fuel from the Russia. It means that the condition that happen in the world will affect the prices of the fuel. What will this implicate to Indonesia? The implication is that is very massive, because we cannot guarantee that this price will be affordable for the society. It means that the society are going to be suffering for their economic development, and this is really bad because because as a state we fail to make us necessary measures to do that. So that's why we don't think it is necessary to channel this fuel subsidies fund to development and infrastructure. But the long-term of economic development means that it has sustainable progress, right? However, this cannot be happen because government require more effort when they're not going to subsidize these fuel funds, because it needs revitalization of this economic that has been damaged because of this policy. Therefore, it require a very long term, and I think it's not going to be 20 years as they have stated earlier. But ladies and gentlemen, let's in comparison within the other countries. Like what I have said earlier, Germany is now suffering, so their economic downfall because the war of Russia and so on and so forth. But the second point that the second proposition team has brought to you is that the development of infrastructure will provide economical benefits. One, right now the job opportunities are not based on physical infrastructure based company. For example, we have now Tokopedia, Shopee, and so on and so forth, which are currently working in the technological infrastructure, right? Not in the physical infrastructure that they are talking about. That's why it is going to be counterproductive for them just to improve the physical infrastructure without seeing the trend that these companies are not going to be based on that. Second, infrastructure is not the only way to provide this. For example, the flexible regulation on companies are things that we need to improve the economic or job opportunities. Lastly, because of that proposal, we don't think that it is a productive solution, and we are very proud to oppose this motion. Thank you.
Okay, ladies and gentlemen, that is the third speaker of the opposite team. And now we'll call for the reply speaker of the opposite team. For the second speaker, time is yours.
We see that how, as governments of the house propose a thing that actually cannot be implemented, both in the current situation and also in future, also in the future, ladies and gentlemen, as we believe that how they are very, very attentive in making their proposal, and as how they are saying that people need to be not to be subsidized because they are lazy and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. If then we believe that how even if they are not subsidized by the government, they are people in Indonesia are still struggling to fulfill their daily needs, ladies and gentlemen. With that kind of thing happen, then there's no reason for them to be lazy and so on and so forth, ladies and gentlemen. And we are also believe that, and if you are going to make the full price higher, as they are going to cut the subsidized given by the government, then people would be struggling and they couldn't survive at the very first place, right? And as how they couldn't survive, we believe that it would affect the economic development, as how people couldn't even fulfill their daily needs, ladies and gentlemen. Then how couldn't they pay tax? Then how couldn't they survive in their life? And how the national budget is going to survive at the end of the day, because people are actually struggling in paying tax, right? And here they're also talking about how the infrastructure development is needed and so on and so forth, but they are only talking in a small scale, which is about the remote area, ladies and gentlemen. Flyover is built in Papua and any other remote area. So what are they worrying about is actually not existed, and it is not justifiable for everyone in Indonesia to have, you know, a higher price for fuel, because how their life is already hard and could not only given to the remote place. At the end of the day, ladies and gentlemen, there's still any other method to help these remote people, as how we can give them more incentive and so on and so forth. And it would and even if we would like to bring you know, create infrastructure so on in those remote area, it wouldn't help, since it needs time to build those infrastructure, and the fact that the fuel is already expensive, the product who is delivered to those remote area is also would be pricey, ladies and gentlemen. So at the end of the day, the remote area people is actually still you know, struggling in paying those high price of daily needs at the end of the day, right? In our proposal, we believe that how the fuel subsidize is actually very important to everyone, as how it really help the distribution of the product and so on and so forth, right? So we believe that how if those fuel subsidies would still given, then it would help the people to survive in their current situation, and also at the end, also in their future, ladies and gentlemen. Because how? Because as they are, you know, could make their current situation and could fulfill their current needed, then they couldn't also fulfill the other needs, such as paying tax and so on and so forth, and that also could help the economic development at the end of the day, right? We all also believe that if it's not channel, as what I have told you, that every sector has their own budget, ladies and gentlemen. So we doesn't need to rush by cutting the full subsidies to help the infrastructure, who is actually okay to help the remote area and so on and so forth, as what the government have told you before. We believe that how those, you know, national budget kind of thing is actually having their own urgency and their own reason to give more to what sector and least to other sector and so on and so forth, because according to the urgency itself, ladies and gentlemen. Now, Indonesia, as someone who is actually lacking in fuel itself, we believe that how we should subsidize the fuel itself, ladies and gentlemen, to help our society survive, and at the end of the day, that what democracy is, ladies and gentlemen, to help the people not only in their future but also in their current situation. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the reply speaker from the opposite team. And now, last but not least, we will call for the reply speaker of the affirmative team. For the reply speaker from first speaker, time is yours.
Okay, thank you for the time. Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. Our motion for today's debate is that this House believes that the fuel subsidy fund channeled for infrastructure development affect the long-term economic development. And we as the government teams believe that these fuel subsidy funds will be affect the economy in long term. We was talking about this will be affect for a long-term development. When my first speaker of the government is already said to you that how this economic developments will, how this infrastructure development will be affect in the long term, because they have a lot of things to do. Like when you build a road in the remote area and you will connect the remote area, you will have the people in the remote area have access to outside of their area, and then they can have a good economics activity, and that makes income for their remote area, ladies and gentlemen. And also, my first speaker is already tell to you that the accessibility about how that infrastructure will be give an accessibility and then give a long-term effect of the economy for the remote area itself, ladies and gentlemen. And also, my second speaker is already tell to you about how the example of toll road, sea toll road, and also railway, how they can connect the remote area, how they can give the long-term economic effect for Indonesia, especially, ladies and gentlemen. And my third speaker is already tell to you also how the more example about how this infrastructure, how they can make a long-term effect, how they can make a long-term economic development in the in the remote area by using this kind of infrastructure. And why we need to do that? Because in my first and second speaker is already tell to you that because this subsidy fund is not on the target. They also only used by the people who can afford a car, who can afford a motorbike. So because of that, they can afford that kind of vehicle. They must also can afford the fuel, ladies and gentlemen. And also, they was the government team also comparing with the other nation, but that is not apple to apple because we are Indonesian is not as developed as country that what the government said before. Ladies and gentlemen, jump to my the other points that the opposition team in the first speakers that also said that there's a lot of people to need the fuel. They didn't say that what kind of people, which segment of people they need the fuel. But we as the government team is already told them, but because of this the people of Indonesia also need the infrastructure. How can you use the fuel when you didn't have the roads? How can you use the fuel when you didn't can access something outside of your area? And also, the opposition teams, the second speaker of opposition teams is said that when we cut the subsidies, there will be a lot of jobless. But ladies and gentlemen, when we cut the subsidies, and also we have been in this situation is not for one time. We have do this in situation in a lot of time, ladies and gentlemen. And then when we move those fund from the subsidies from full, and then we cut and move that for the infrastructure developments, we can use to build some roads. That makes a lot of work will be work to build the roads. And to build the roads, we will need a lot of materials to build it, okay? We need that item, and that will be the economic activity there. And also, when we build the roads in the long terms, we will have the economic development because in the side of the road we will have the shop. We will have the economic land use area. So because of that, ladies and gentlemen, we as the government team strongly agree and strongly support this motion because we already give the reason why this affect the long-term economic of Indonesia. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, that is the reply speaker from the affirmative team and also the last speaker of this debate session. Please give the big applause for all debaters for being or deliver great speech. And now it is time for us to listen our adjudicator giving some tribute comments for the adjudicator. Time is yours.
Good afternoon, everybody. Okay, take it easy, yeah, relax, yeah. You have done your best in these sessions. Usually in debate, in the final, there is a silent session in order to just hear about the result. But there is comments about how to. Tadi bilangnya langsung ngasih gini aja ya. Ya udah, saya kasih general aja dah kalau gitu ya. So I would like to appreciate both of the teams that have conducted the debate in a very good way. You have done your best. Whatever the results today, take it as the experiences. Ambil sebagai pengalaman. The most important that I would like to remind you that debate is an art. Saya sudah beberapa kali bilang, mungkin di beberapa kesempatan juga, debate is an art. It's not only just delivering the arguments, but how to support the arguments with the facts. It's not saying general logic atau logika-logika umum, tapi juga harus didukung dengan fakta. Selain itu, fakta yang diberikan juga harus fakta yang valid. Ya, jadi harus diberikan fakta yang valid juga, jangan hanya sekedar fakta diambil dari A gitu. Saya ambil dari A, tadi ada yang bilang dari salah satu media. Dijelaskan juga medianya, terus kemudian medianya yang diambil dari itu judulnya medianya apa gitu. Kalau bisa lebih jelas lebih bagus. Sama seperti kalau kalian mengutip tugas, saya ambilkan dari daftar pustaka dari ini di tahun berapa. Dikutip dari Mulyono tahun 2020, dikutip dari Kompas TV tahun berapa, dikutip dari ini tahun berapa. Kalau bisa judulnya juga sekalian, jadi bisa lebih jelas. Enggak yang sekedar inti-intinya saja gitu. Kemudian penting bagi kalian bahwa untuk berdebat itu tidak hanya personal argument saja. Jadi harus bertim. Tadi ada yang merasa personal argumentsnya lebih kuat sehingga yang di timnya agak timpang sedikit. Jadi harus dibagi rata. Tadi ada yang bilang akan jelaskan dari sisi A, sisi B, sisi C gitu. Itu juga harus di-concern banget. Gitu. Jangan hanya fokus ke rebuttal, tapi juga develop argumentsnya juga. Gitu. Ya, itu sih kalau dari saya. Both of you know the mechanisms of debate. Both of you conducted debate in such a good way. Whatever the results, just be happy, ya, nikmatin aja. Kan lombanya juga hari ini, ya. Thank you very much. Ya, mungkin silakan.
Right, thank you so much. So I really enjoyed the debate, the flow of your speech, and also how you try to prove us within your arguments. But the thing is, it's not always talking about your argument itself, but also your team. So in how you're having the collaboration with your team is really mattering here because we work as a team. That's the first one. And the second one is about elaboration. So when giving an arguments, when giving questions in terms of rebuttal, try to explain what you mean with the question itself. Okay, so not only giving the questions without any reasons, that's the point. And the last one is about repetitions. So some of the speaker repeat the other speaker before them. That does not make sense, you know. When you want to deliver something, please make sure that you elaborate those and try to give more example, not only repeating, okay? Because that will be counted as the same point. I think that's all from me. Thank you.
Well, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the Mr. Aditya and also Ms. Nia for giving some comment. And now it is the end of our debate session. Once again, please give the big applause for all of us here. For the participant, after this, you can go to the back to your seat and please stay here because we will announce the winner here. So good afternoon and thank you.